ASMR.
A lot of you suggested that I make a bass video following my how to make any riff heavier video, which if you haven't seen, you can click right there and watch it. If you have seen it, you're probably waiting for a bass video, which is great. But here's the thing, I do not play bass. I don't know why I asked everyone if they wanted a bass video, because I know nothing about bass. Anyone who's looked at a bass guitar for 5 minutes is already a better bassist than me. So yeah, if you still want to watch this, that's perfect. If you're watching this and you don't have a bass, stick around till the end of the video, because I'll show you the free VST that I used before I bought a bass. If you're a bassist, please don't watch this. If you're not a bassist and you're a guitarist and you want to see how to write cool bass, I'm going to talk about how I approach writing bass for my riffs/songs, and the different things that I learned through recording and just writing out different things. Okay, so what is a good bass line? A good bass line is a bass line that serves a song. If your bass line does not serve the song, then your bass line is garbage. Whatever you wrote is trash. It's a dumpster. A good bass line needs to serve the song. Okay bro, so how do you serve the song? It's a good question. That's why I made this video. So stick around and maybe we'll figure this out together. Maybe I'll learn a thing or two about bass too, because... So why does the bass need to serve the song? The bass is like the building block for your song. It's like a platform that your song sits on. If that platform is garbage, it's like you're eating a $200 meal on a plastic plate. We don't want that. We want a $200 meal on a gold plate. So now you have a $200 meal on a $200 plate, and it looks very nice, and you give it to a customer and they take a bite and they're like, I want to speak to a manager, and you're like, oh, why am I in the service industry? Well, we'll get to examples in a second, but before that I want to talk about the things I look out for before writing bass. So clearly I write guitars before writing the bass lines, because I'm a guitarist. If you're watching this, you probably do the same. You write a cool riff and you're like, shit, why don't I have a bassist? You can be your own bassist. Okay, just for the sake of simplicity and tightness, and because my bass is set up in E standard, all of the examples are going to be in standard tuning, no drop tuning here. I'm sorry, gent boys. So the first thing I look at in a riff is, and this is what everyone does, is that they see if they can just play the root notes. If it serves the song, then great, play the root notes. But usually this is considered lame and boring, because sometimes the song asks for something a bit more edgy. So let's take this example for example. So what we have here is a riff that has something that I like to call notes of interest. And what that is here is it's these two. So having these two notes of interest gives the listener some sort of, oh, this is what's important in the riff right now. And you want to highlight that with the bass line. Because the bass line screws everything together. So here I'm playing a D in a major third and then an E in a minor third. So what you can do here with the bass is play the root note, the E, and then when it gets to the notes of interest, you can either play the D and the E or their thirds, like this. Okay, so it sounds pretty good. It sounds okay, but I don't like it. So usually I like to spice things up. Try to spice things up a bit. I like to create some sort of build-up or some sort of movement. And especially with this riff, because it sounds like the kind of riff that's like that wouldn't stick around for the whole song. It's just kind of like a filler in the intro or the bridge. So I would reflect that in the bass line. That lets the audience know, oh, this bass is a bit, like we don't know where it's going. It's this riff is not gonna stick around. It's leading to a build up, and it would sound something like this. So now it sounds like this riff has purpose, and the bass line has a purpose. It's like taking us towards the next riff or the next part of the song. If it's in the intro, then it's taking us towards the actual song with the main riff. Or if it's in a bridge, it's taking us towards a guitar solo or something. So that's a good thing to look out for. Okay, so another thing that you can do is just play the same notes as the riff itself with the bass. Let's say your riff goes blah blah blah. Your bass is going blah 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 as well. Why would you do that? So playing the same notes as your riff gives the riff a lot of attention. It highlights the riff. It's like, oh, this is a riff, bro, which is cool and all, but sometimes when you spend a lot of time doing that, playing the same notes, the audience misses the feeling of the grounding that the bass gives. It's called bass for a reason. So if you're always jumping around with the notes on the riff, the listener's jumping around with you, and they're gonna get tired. So you want to go back to like a grounding. It's like, okay, we jumped around with the riff, and now we're just chilling. Here's an example. So in the beginning of that riff, I'm playing the same notes as the riff, and the drums are all intense, everything is intense. But if this keeps on going for like 2 minutes, no one's gonna listen to the whole 2 minutes. There's no dynamics, nothing's going on there. So what you can do is, in the next part, which is this, I stopped playing all the notes on the bass, and I started playing the root, kind of like palm muted, because then it's gonna start moving back up. And when we got to the build-up part, which is this, so the picking on the bass and that build-up started becoming more intense, especially to highlight that open E note that was playing there. And then after that section is finished, we go back to the introduction of the riff, which was the intense version. So we started with the intense, we went down, and we went back up, and then we went back to the original intense riff. So by us introducing that heavy version in the beginning, the heaviest the riff is going to get. Once you dive back down, the audience is going to be like, okay, like I'm feeling it, but take me back to that heaviness. But if you started with the heaviness and just kept going with the heaviness, then the audience is like, okay, bro, please off. So that's the thing you would look out for. Just keep in mind the dynamics of the song. Just listen to what the riff asks for. Sometimes you need to go quiet, sometimes you need to not play at all. So everything comes down to what you're doing for the song and what the song asks for. Because if you're feeling something while you're listening to your own song, the listener that's listening to your song is going to feel the same way. Listen to what you're feeling and write accordingly. So if you don't have a bass and you've made it this far, congrats. Before I bought a bass, I used to use this free VST called 4-front bass. Looks something like this. I think you can get it from VSTs for free or VSTforfree.com. There's probably a dozen better free VSTs, but this is just something that I have installed that I use. Okay, so I have my bass track right here. Let us open up 4-front bass. 4-front bass, there it is. So I have some minor EQing that I did for the plugin, and then I added a free tube screamer that you can also download just for that extra grit. So let's hear how it sounds. Okay, so it doesn't sound that bad. It does sound kind of robotic because I programmed it, and if you play it on a MIDI controller, it's gonna sound a bit more natural. It's never gonna be a real bass, but it's passable if you don't have a bass and you just want to record bass for your song. Anyway, so this is everything I have to say about bass for this video. If you still have any questions, let me know. If you don't have questions, that's good, because I'm not a bassist. So, thank you for watching.